See, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. Another episode in the budget saga. It has not been a good week for the Bush presidency. It was another long day at the White House. Had the president really made up his mind where he would stand on the issue of higher taxes for the wealthy? Are his critics and even some of his friends piling on with words like indecisive and phrases like a vacuum in leadership? As ABC's Britt Hume reports, after some further explaining today, things do look a little clearer.
The White House awoke today to a nationwide harvest of headlines proclaiming the president's indecision on the issue where once you could read his lips, taxes. Mr. Bush himself acknowledged this morning something had to be done about the confusion.
We just need a little clarification.
But what happened next was hardly that. Senior Republican congressman came out of that meeting to announce that the president would go for a higher top income tax rate if he got a cut in the capital gains tax.
He is willing to equalize or level the rate at 31% in exchange for a 15% capital gains rate.
After the president had signaled yes, then no on that idea just 2 days ago, reporters wanted to be sure.
He said, yes, this is what I want to do. He said, without equivocation, this is what he wanted to do.
But within the hour, Press Secretary Fitzwater was out with a statement quoting the president as saying, "I do not believe such a compromise is now possible." On Capitol Hill, Bush Budget Chief Darman found himself up against the wall as reporters clamored for an explanation of the president's position. And Democratic senators were equally curious about how Mr. Bush plans to cut the deficit.
What at 12:29 p.m. is the president's position on how we achieve that?
I could try to respond, but needless to say, his own words will supersede mine.
Back at the White House, that's just what happened as the president sat down again with some of the same Republicans. He does favor such a tax deal, he said, but after trying in vain to get it during the budget summit, he doesn't think there's much chance.
They can get that done, fine. I think it's a waste of time because I just don't think it can get through both houses of Congress, and that's what's required.
As if to prove that, House Ways and Means Chairman Rostenkowski this afternoon came forth with a Democratic plan to raise the top income tax rate to 33%, plus a 10% surtax on million-dollar incomes. He said the plan will also include a capital gains tax cut, but not as low as Mr. Bush wants.
I think 15% is just too rich.
When all is said and done, the president and his team think Congress will produce a budget very much like the summit budget the House rejected last week, and they think it will pass, not because anybody likes it, but because everybody will know by then no better deal is possible. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
Well, not everybody's confused. There is nothing like a budget war to mobilize Washington's army of lobbyists, and they outnumber members of Congress nearly 20-1. As ABC's John Martin reports tonight, the quickest way to get their adrenaline going is to threaten the constituency for which they lobby. In this case, the elderly. The subject is Medicare.
This week, the chief lobbyist for a group called Families USA went on national cable television to discuss proposed increases in Medicare costs for the elderly. He took questions.
And it's very hard for me to pay any more for Medicare. What do I do?
Contact the Senate Finance Committee, tell them that you need protection, tell them that those people marginally above the poverty line cannot afford to pay these increased costs.
This morning, Pollack met with a coalition of organizations working for the elderly. They considered their latest setback. Last week, through lobbying, they got increased Medicare costs cut from $60 billion to $40 billion. But yesterday, budget writers raised the figure to $50 billion. By one estimate, this will cost the beneficiaries $180 more each year.
Well, I think, for example, in the low-income protection, Senator Mitchell is very sympathetic to that.
So it was back to work, from the well-financed American Association of Retired Persons, with its own building, to the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, to Families USA, tucked upstairs in modest quarters.
Seniors will still be paying more than they're paying now.
Families USA says it has activated 100,000 volunteers to contact all 535 members of Congress. As the lobbyists make their rounds on Capitol Hill, they get in the doors of subcommittee chairmen because Congress knows the elderly vote in large numbers. Even so, lobbyists keep reminding them.
Well, we contacted
2.5 million households who are membership at the end of last week, and Congress will be getting.
This chairman assured them that a deal has been made to have some of the added Medicare costs paid largely by health care providers, such as doctors and hospitals.
Can we hold it through the full committee? We'll see.
With so much at stake, lobbyists for competing interests are jamming hallways outside rooms where budget writers meet. Lobbyists for the elderly said no deal is final until the votes have been taken and they can see how successful their competitors have been. John Martin, ABC News, Washington.
In a moment, we'll go overseas. The killings in Jerusalem. More questions about the official version of how it happened. On the American agenda tonight, hospital care for everyone. How Maryland does it. And they have pulled the plug on free phone service from Saudi Arabia. We'll tell you why.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Bufferin.